Hey everybody, it's Carmel here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all good out there. I have a tutorial today, guys, as promised, and this tutorial is part of my top 5 tips series. And for this one, we're going to talk all things shaker, because I know shakers confuse a lot of people and intimidate a lot of people when it comes to crafting, but they're also brilliant fun to make. So I'm going to share everything I've learned and know about shaker making. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than my usual videos because there's going to be a lot more than 5 tips in it. So maybe grab a cup of your favorite brew or your favorite chocolate cookies and let's just get straight into it. I just want to mention quickly that this video is not sponsored in any way by any of the brands or companies that I mention. All of the products and brands that I use were purchased with my own money, and I am not affiliated with any of the companies that I mention in this video. So when we talk about shakers, we're usually talking about this kind of shaker here. This is what you'd call a general traditional shaker that's been made using a die for the window, using acetate and using foam. So this is probably the most common way of putting shakers together. So a little bit later on in this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of making a shaker in this way. We're going to use a die, we're going to use acetate, we're going to talk all things foam, and we're going to put our own shaker together. And we're going to recreate this little shaker here using foam and acetate. But for tip number 1, guys, I'm going to talk about alternatives. We're going to talk about different methods of making shakers, and I'm going to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. So one great alternative way of making shakers is to use products that are specifically made for shaker making. And there are lots of companies out there that make those kind of products. Jelly bean soup is one. Jelly bean soup have been around for a long time and they're still available. I think scrapbook.com still carry jelly bean soup products, but they're really great. They have all different shapes and all different styles, but they give you basically the die, and then you can get the little shaker cups that match the die perfectly. So it makes shaker making very easy. So you don't need any foam, you don't need any acetate, it's all done for you. All you do is cut your basic shape, add your goodies, your sequins to your pouch, and stick your pouch on, and it's job done, shaker made. It takes out the whole foam factor. You don't need to worry about any of that or how to cut acetate. It just makes the process much easier. And they have lots of different designs in the range. They have this little cute washing machine one where you get the cups come in circle form to make a little washing machine. So they're really fun. MFT is another company that make very similar products. This is the rectangle, a dynamics die, and the pouches to go with each particular die. They have all kinds of fun shapes in this range, and again, it just makes shaker making very easy. You just die cut your frame if you want to add the frame to it. You add your bits and then you add on your window, and again, you've job done. You don't need any foam, don't need any acetate, and it's just a really easy way of making a fun shaker very quickly and without any struggle. So there's lots of other companies that do. Tonic Studios make a whole range of these kind of shaker windows as well. They have a Christmas line as well. There's lots of different fun shapes for making shakers. Queen and Company are another company that make similar products. They take it to a whole different level. They give you the whole shaker kit. Like you get your paper, your stamps, the whole lot. They do use foam in their shaker kits, but the foam is pre-cut, which makes it super easy and quick to put together, and you get your pre-cut acetate as well. You don't have to go for the whole kit if you don't like it. You can just buy this part. You don't have to buy the dies even. You can just go to town and make the shakers by themselves. They have several kits in their range. This is probably my favorite one, the dog one. And you can make something like this. It looks like really complicated to make, and it's not, because your foam is pre-cut, so you just literally have to cut your frame piece and stick on for the pattern paper on the top and stick it on. I didn't make a shaker out of the woof. I just used the pre-cut foam and cut it, used the die to cut the paper, and then added glossy accents to the top. A bone-shaped shaker. I mean, I love dogs and I love shakers, so you know, that's just heaven for me. Doesn't take much to make me happy, really, does it? You know, paper and sequins and I'm good to go. So another alternative where you don't need to worry about foam is if you like to sew, you can use your sewing machine and just sew acetate together and make up a shaker like I've done here. I've added a pocket here so you can add a gift card or something like that. You could easily use this in a card. You could, you know, just make the rectangle piece and add that to the center of a card, and you'd have a shaker done with the card with no foam required. The great thing about sewing shakers together as well with acetate like this is that the sky's the limit. You can design your own shape. I've made an envelope one here, and you can also go as big as you like. Like you could make two A4 acetate sheets together, stitch them together, and you've got a gigantic shaker. And, But it's just another easy way of making shakers without having the fuss of foam. You can also go with coloured acetate. I shared these in a previous video, but you can use coloured acetate instead just to give it a different look. Another great way of making shakers is to use packaging that you have around the house. This cup here was originally a packet of paper clips, so I just kept the plastic part and turned it into a shaker. The base piece was made just using a die cut, and I used my distress oxides on it to create the background, and then I created a little scene in here and added my bits. This turtle here is from Heffy Doodle, and I love him. He's one of my favourite turtle images ever. Just so adorable. Once you start doing this, I promise you, you'll be eyeing up every package in your home, you know, in the supermarket. You can say, oh, I could turn that into a shaker. I do that all the time. And again, super quick. You know, I've just taken the packages, stuck it on, and used a die cut frame around it, and job done. Really easy, no foam involved. The last alternative method I have for making shakers is to use a fuse tool. I can't remember who made this off the top of my head. I think it's from We Are Memory Keepers. I know there's a few brands out there on the market, but I have this so long that I can't remember which one I bought. I'm almost sure it's We Are Memory Keepers, but it's really easy to use. So here's what you can do with the fuse tool. These are just page protectors that I fused together. So basically, you plug in your tool, it heats up, you take your two pieces of page protector, or you can use packaging plastic or anything like that. You hold them down, use a ruler, and then just score, and the little wheel turns and fuses the plastic together. My tip for using this technique is I use a silicone mat underneath, and it just gives the wheel a bit of bite. The plastic can be very slippery, and the wheel can skim over and you won't get a good seal. So I just use a silicone mat underneath, and it gives a bit of bite to my wheel, and that's how I make them. And also, the sky's the limit. You can come up with your own designs and your own shapes. And I've seen people use the fuse tool around cookie cutters and all, so you can make all kinds of fun shapes. And again, no fuss, no foam difficulty or acetate difficulty, just really fun way of putting shakers together. So I hope my first tip has shown you some alternatives to shaker making. There are lots of alternatives out there, so I hope you can try some of them out and let me know how you get on. So tip number 2, guys, we're going to talk all things foam. I know we've talked a lot about alternative methods of making shakers, but for tip number 2, we're going to get into actual shaker making with foam. We're going to put this shaker together here, and I'm going to use this die set here. This is from AliExpress, and it's a really simple shaker die. It's a 2-piece die. So we've got this piece here, which is going to cut our main base piece and our acetate, and we've got our frame piece here, which is going to cut our foam and our top outline piece here. So when we go to make shakers, we usually go for this kind of foam here. This is available in all craft and art supply stores and toy stores because it's very popular for kids' crafts. And it comes in a wide variety of colours, and it's very inexpensive to buy, but it's not good at all for making shakers, and I'll show you why. It's super thin to start with, so we're not going to get a lot of depth to be able to add our shaker bits into. It's also very soft and very flexible, so it's not going to hold up well in a die cutting machine. This kind of foam is fine to use if you want to just cut a shape to help you to make a shaker, then it's fine. But to put it through a die cutting machine, it's not going to work. It's too flimsy, it's going to flatten out, it's also going to get even thinner when we put it through the die cutting machine, and it's also going to warp because it's not tough enough. So I've die cut it here just to show you, and you can see it has gone even thinner than it already is. So if we were to use this to make a shaker, we would really only be able to add flat sequence into our shaker. We wouldn't have enough depth, or else we'd have to die cut it 2 or 3 times and layer it up to give it some depth. And that's also going to be a problem because you can see how flimsy it is. So I've die cut my base piece here, and he's obviously going to be a chocolate bunny today because I'm just using dark cardstock because it shows up better on camera. When I go to glue this down, I'm going to have to maneuver it to match my base shape. It's going to create a mess, and it's going to make it much trickier to make the shaker. So my top tip when it comes to foam is to use foam board. This is the type of foam I'm talking about. It's very dense and it's very stiff, so it will be able to handle going through a die cutting machine. There are lots of brands of this foam board out there on the market, and they're not all created equal either. Some of them do warp very badly and some of them do go thin, but I found this one. This is Premier brand. If you're in Ireland or the UK, you'll probably be familiar with this brand. They make kind of low cost student grade art and craft supplies, and I use a fair few of their products. This one never fails to cut nicely for me. I buy my foam from an art supply store because they sell it in large sheets and it's cheaper to buy that way than it is in you're buying smaller packs of it. So that's why I buy big sheets of it. Here's my bunny cut in this foam. You can see it's still got lots of nice depth and it's sturdy. It's not going to warp and it's going to be super easy to glue and apply. I won't have to fuss at all. I'll just have to add my glue and pop it on. Job done. Another top tip I have when it comes to die cutting foam for shakers, I use the Big Shot Plus die cutting machine with the plus size plates, but I have a separate pair of cutting plates that I keep just for shakers because the less warped your plates are, the less warping you're going to get in your foam. These are just small, cheapest chip plates that I bought on AliExpress. I think they were $3 or something like that, but I keep them just purely for shaker making and cutting foam. It really does help, so that's a top tip. So we're going to do the next part of the process here. I've die cut my bunny, I have my base piece and my foam piece, and we're going to adhere it. So I'm just going to take my wet glue. Some people like to put the base piece down and add the foam this way. I'm a bit weird. I like to hold my base piece and then I find it easier to align when I pick up my base piece and align it that way. So I'm just going to press this down and give it a half a minute or so off camera just to let it dry, and then I'll come back and share another really good tip with you. So I have my bunny here ready to go, and I'm just going to share another quick tip with you because sometimes we can get glue poking out here, and that will give us problems when we seal up our shaker later on and we add our sequins and we shake it and we discover that the sequins have got stuck around the frame because there's been some glue that has dried in sticky. So I'm going to take a soft brush here and I'm going to take some talcum powder, or I'm going to use, you can use if you have an embossing powder tool, you can shake it up. I'm just going to dip my brush in some talcum powder and pop it in here to the edges, and that will take all of that sticky away. It will also help to reduce the static when we add our sequins. I'm also going to apply this powder lightly to my acetate piece here and shake off the excess because acetate can be very staticky, and so can sequins. So just a little bit of powder can be your best friend. So I have my bunny and I'm going to add a shaker mix, and again I haven't, just for demonstration purposes, I've just made up I've just grabbed the first sequence in my stash. I haven't put a whole lot of thought or effort into what I'm putting in here. I just want to get on with the process of showing you how to put it together. So the next thing I'm going to do, I have my acetate piece here and I'm going to apply my frame die cut piece here. I'm going to share another tip with you. When it comes to cutting the frame piece, I've taken a piece of cardstock here. Before I put my die down and run it through the cutting machine, I apply double-sided adhesive on the back so that when it comes out, it's ready to stick on to my acetate, because this frame piece is going to be stuck directly to the acetate, and using double-sided adhesive just makes it much easier and cleaner than if we use wet glue on this piece. Wet glue on acetate can be a bit of a mess, so I just find it easier to apply double-sided adhesive before I run it through. I'm using this, it's Premier brand, but you can get double-sided tape like this in your pound shop or your Dollar Tree. I don't use the good adhesive sheets for this, I just use this. It does the job fine. I do use this method a lot, not just for shaker making, but just for die cutting in general, especially if I'm putting die cuts on any kind of coated cardstock like Miri card or anything like that, where I'd rather avoid using wet glue. I think just find it's a really handy technique to use. So I'm going to take off my double-sided tape here, and this is a piece on his ear. And again, I'm going to use my own, this is my own way of doing it. I hold my die cut up, hold my acetate piece up. I just find I get much better alignment when I do it that way. And I've gone a bit off with the alignment here, but that's okay. I can trim that off later on. So we're now going to apply our framed acetate piece to our shaker, and I'm going to share another couple of tips with you for doing that. Now we are going to go in with wet glue here on acetate, so we need to be a bit careful when we do this. Your best chance for success with this is to use a really good quality wet glue. I'm using Pinflair here. It's my go-to glue of choice. There are lots of fantastic wet glues out there on the market. Nouveau from Tonic is a fantastic wet glue, or Art Glitter Dries Clear is great. Creative Expressions, Cosmic Shimmer. Just find the one that works best for you. The reason I use a good quality glue is because less is more, especially when it comes to gluing acetate and shakers. Less is more, and if you use a good quality glue, you won't need to use lots of it. So I'm going to apply my glue here, and I'm going to try and keep my glue to the outside of the shaker piece because it is going to spread as soon as I pop the acetate down. So I want it to spread as little as possible in where it can be seen on the acetate. So I'm going to apply my glue to the outside surface as much as I possibly can. So another tip when it comes to gluing for shakers, I'm going to take a piece of cut up kitchen sponge here, and I'm going to spread the glue a little bit so that it's less gloopy and there's less chance of it smearing inside where it will be seen on my acetate when I close up my shaker. This is another advantage of using a really good quality wet glue. There won't be a lot of glue left on my foam, but I don't need much. The glue is good enough that it doesn't need a lot. It'll be sticky, and as the air hits it, it's going to get even stickier. So I'm going to take my acetate piece, my frame piece, and I'm going to apply it very carefully to my shaker. And I'm going to press down. And that's it, my friends. We have a very nicely and easily and quickly put together shaker. There's no mess. It's a nice shape. There's no unsightly foam sticking out here that we have to trim off. Obviously, again, when you're making it, you put a lot more thought into what colors you're using and all that kind of thing. But just for demo purposes, it can be very easy. It doesn't have to be complicated, guys. They're very easy to put together. Foam is the key. So I hope that helps you guys. Tip number 2 is really all about foam. And the advantage of using foam board is you eliminate all that mess of warping and misshaping and not being able to add much, because you can, once you trust the foam board that you're using, you can go to town, you can double layer and triple layer and add all kinds of chunky goodness to your shakers if you want. So that's our cute little foam shaker made. I hope I've demystified foam for you a little bit with that. So for tip number 3, guys, I'm just going to very, very quickly share some other ideas for using foam in your shakers that you might not have tried already. One of the reasons I like using this foam board in my shakers is that you can colour it with alcohol markers. So if you want your project to be a bit more coordinated, like if you're making this bunny for real, say, to add to a project, you can, before you assemble it, you could colour your foam pink or brown or whatever colours you have going on in your project. And I love that about this foam because you can't really do that with the softer foam. So I love it for that reason. You can take that a step further then if you want, because this foam layers up really nicely as well. So you can go a double layer, or you can just go all out triple layer like I've done with these flip-flops that I made for summer. 3 different colours, 3 different layers of foam. And because it's the foam board, it's even the whole way around. I have no warping, I have no mess when I'm assembling. I just add my glue and stick it together, and you have a little fun project like this. The other thing about layering up your foam like this is that you can really, really go to town on your shaker filler, and you can add all kinds of fun chunky things that you can't really do when you're using the soft foam. So the last thing I'll share with you about foam, and specifically foam board, is that I love it not just for shaker making. I've used it here obviously on the Swan shaker piece, but I've also used it underneath on this layering piece here. And I love the foam board because this is a really intricate die, and it's cut it really cleanly and evenly the whole way around. Obviously I had to take my pokey tool and poke out these little pieces here. But ever since I started using foam board, I very rarely use the thin stuff now, especially when I'm making shakers. So guys, I've shared everything I know about foam with you at this point. So I hope you find it helpful, and we'll move on to the next tip. Tip number 4, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about acetate because it does make a difference in our shakers. I'm not going to show you sheets of acetate on camera because it'll be just glare central, and we all know what acetate looks like. But I've already shared with you my tip for using powder with a brush to reduce the static. Another tip I have for you in that is if you can get your hands on heat resistant acetate. I know there's several companies that make it. I know Crafters Companion make heat resistant acetate packs, and I use that one for the most part in my shakers, especially if I'm using if I'm making shakers like this. These little foam balls come in packs, and they're just really fun to add to shaker mixes. If you're using these foam balls, I found that they will stick horrendously with any other acetate that you use, and they won't shake and they won't move. They will just be stuck to acetate. So that's a top tip for you when it comes to acetate using. If you can get your hands on heat-resistant acetate, then all the better. You can also avoid acetate altogether if you prefer, and you can use vellum instead of acetate. The only thing about using vellum is that it's obviously not as transparent as acetate, so you won't see your shaker bits as clearly as you would if you're using acetate. So you can compensate a little bit for this by using darker color or more vivid colored sequence or shaker filler inside. But if you're using the more transparent or paler sequence, they won't show up as well in vellum as they do with acetate. I think vellum does make a really nice shaker though, especially if you're going for a much softer look with a baby bunny or something, a project like this, then it works really well, I think. So for the last part of the video, guys, we're going to talk about the fun stuff, which is this stuff here, the shaker filler. And sequins, I suppose, are the obvious one. Almost everyone who makes shakers adds sequins at some stage into their shaker mixes. But there's lots of other things you can use. I'm going to add some footage to this video where I'm going to give you a sneak peek into my stash of shaker filler goodies and show you just how much I do love to make shakers. But if you don't want to go the Cartwright sequence or the AliExpress route, there are lots of companies out there who make all kinds of shaker filler products. And these are just some examples. These are from Buttons Galore and more. They're just shaker embellishments. So if you go on any of the big craft stores online and just type in even the word shaker in the search bar, you'll come up with all kinds of things like this. Some people add cake sprinkles, edible cake sprinkles to the shakers. I've never made shakers using those, but I use polymer clay sprinkles instead. But the sky's the limit. You can add pretty much anything. So I'll stop talking and I'm going to add some footage and just show you the kind of things I like to add to my shakers. So this is kind of my happy wall in my craft room. This is where I store most of my bling and my beads and embellishments and that kind of thing. So these top drawers here are all for sequins, and I'll just show you what's going on in here. I have tons. And before you have a heart attack looking at the amount of sequins, because I sometimes want to have a heart attack when I look at the amount of sequins I have in here. But before you panic, I've been paper crafting for a long time. I didn't buy all of these sequins in the last month kind of thing. I've been collecting for years. So it hasn't my stash hasn't built up overnight to the level that it's at, but I do love sequins, and I do even still, no matter how many years I've been collecting them, I still have, I have way too many. I love these acrylic cases. They're hard acrylic cases because the compartments are fixed. So for tiny embellishments like this, they're great. You don't get any intermixing in the colors, and they only hold a small amount, but that's all you need when you're making a shaker. You're only using a pinch at a time kind of thing. You won't get a whole packet of sequins from Cartwright or Ali into any of these compartments, but I just keep my overflow separate. So I'd rather have a small amount and be able to see everything in one place than have more space taken up with packets. So that's how I like to store my sequins. So then we move over here. These top drawers here are also for shakers. This one is kind of dewdrops and that kind of thing. These are great for shakers. These are, if you go on Ali and you just type in table scatter, you get all these kind of crystals. Look at those colors. They make really great shaker filler, and they make a great noise as well when you shake them, because we all love a noisy shaker. The next couple of drawers are polymer clay slices. I also have an out of control polymer clay slice addiction, clearly, because I have tons of them. These are for the most part bought from Ali. These particular storage boxes as well came from Ali. These are little polymer clay rings, just super cute for shakers. And then these are bubbles. I love to make mermaid and dolphin projects and those. So these are little bubbles. Just open them up so you can see them. Also great for shakers, and they give you a lot of that lovely noise as well, but just different colors of bubbles. Super cute. So then down here we have some more polymer clay, because you can never have enough polymer clay slices. I used to make polymer clay craft. I used to make little sculptures and keychains and all that kind of thing before I got into paper craft. But now polymer clay is all about the shakers, shaker filler, the little fish ones as well. And then speaking of fish, I have the top two drawers over here. I have some sequins in here as well. These are just for ocean themed embellishments, because I do love to make my dolphin and my whale projects and that kind of thing. So I have some sequins in here that are from Cartwright as well. I have fish-shaped sequins And these shells, I love these. I use these a lot in my craft room. I absolutely love these giant shells from Cartwright. So just some more sequins in there. And then the rest of these top two drawers are ocean. The rest of these drawers are all beads, but this drawer here is kind of shaker relevant beads because they're all seed beads. Seed beads are fantastic for shakers as well because they just add a lot of color and they add a lot of noise as well when you shake them. So that's what that drawer is about. So that's just a little glimpse into the shaker filler section of my embellishment drawers. Someday I will do a proper craft room tour and just show you what else is going on in my craft room. But that's the shaker relevant section for now. So I hope you liked it. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and so you can share my crafting journey here on YouTube with me. Please do leave me comments below. Let me know what you think and share your shaker making stories with me. I'd love to know how you're getting on with shakers, especially if you found this video helpful. I would really love to know if you found anything in this video helpful, because that's why I did it in the first place, is to help people out and share what I've learned about making shakers, and hopefully you find it helpful too. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you're all well and having a nice week out there, and I will chat to you all in the next video. Bye bye.